Okay, well, my name's Travis Dillard, and me is Chris Recio, and you're joining our. This would be our quarterly. We do webinars every month, generally educational in nature. This would be our quarterly webinar focused on specific contact center topics, and not necessarily technology-related topics. So, our topic today is going to be on agent engagement. And if you go to the next slide here, Chris. We'll give some introductions, and then we'll hand it over to Chris, who will jump into the webinar. So my name is Travis Dillard, and I'm the president and CEO of Inflow Communications. I have over 20 years of experience in the unified communications and in the contact center realm. Chris Recio comes to us, has well over 20 years in specific contact center experience in the design, deployment, support, consulting, and advanced applications. So we're lucky to have Chris. He has many years working both as a customer in the contact center space, designing and running contact centers, as well as coming to us from various contact center technology providers like ShoreTel and Intertel and Noble Systems and others. So we're lucky to have Chris on board with us. Should be a great webinar today, very educational. So again, we'll do a quick introduction on Inflow Communications, on who we are. We are headquartered out of Portland, Oregon. We support coming up on 100,000 endpoints. I think it's right at 90,000 actually, across the United States and really across the world. That'd be unified communications and contact center endpoints. We are very specific in what we do. We're focused on our craft, and that's in contact center design, support. So from a technology standpoint, that would be on the software side, and then also on the consulting and education part. So we provide a lot of consulting packages, again, non-product specific consulting packages that help our customers elevate their contact center experience for their clients. And we also have a full educational program around contact center that focuses on administrators and agents and supervisors, reporting, big data, and many other topics. So if you're interested in some of the educational, the more formal packaged educational classes that we provide specific to our clients, let us know. We have offices in Oregon, Washington, California, Texas, and Florida. The slide's a little dated. We have close to 40 employees that are focused in the contact center and unified communication space. And again, the classic design support of the technology side, and then on our contact center consulting and education side. So you can see some of the national logos that we work with, some of the national customers we work with, and global customers that we work with in the contact center space on this slide. I threw this slide in here because for those of you that join us on a regular basis on our monthly webinars, or if you're a customer of ours, or on our quarterly webinars, you'll see that if you go to our website, on every single page on the top right-hand side, you will see a big orange button that says our knowledge base, and on there you'll see all things white papers, blogs, training videos. So all these educational videos that we've been doing for the last couple of years, we break it up into mini topics, and they're all searchable through our knowledge portal. All the white papers Chris Recio has written on white paper, or as far as agent engagement and KPIs, and some really good blog posts. So we're really focused on educating, and we're really focused on providing what I would probably consider being one of the national leaders in unified communications and contact center education. It's all free, it's all ungated, so please go take a look. There's a lot of really good resources, and we're adding to it daily. So go take a look at our website, go look at our knowledge portal, and you'll see all of these training videos, all these webinars that are pre-recorded, as well as the white papers and blogs and tech articles and other things. So, and not all of it's product specific around ShoreTel, which is a big part of what our practice is. There's a lot of non-product specific contact center stuff up there as well. And if you go up to our website also, and this isn't in the slide, if you go under solutions and under contact center, you can look, we have a whole basically mini site on contact center. So you'll be able to go take a look at some of the products that we do support outside of ShoreTel. But more importantly, you can look at what's part of what we call our contact center success management program. So you can look at our consulting and training packages. You can look at the type of case studies and customers we work with around the contact center education side. So, one of the things that we've realized, and we've baked this into our educational programs, is that there's not a lot of really good formal non-product specific contact center training, education, and enablement programs out there. And so we're really focused on providing a lot of that education on a national basis. So go take a look at our website, look at our contact center stuff, and then look at our knowledge portal. And hopefully there's a lot of really good information up there. On that note, I'm going to hand this over to Chris Recio. He's our Director of Contact Center and Advanced Applications. And Chris is going to talk a little bit about our CCSM program. We're finding we're getting a lot of really good traction, and there's a lot of interest and excitement and engagement around the formal contact center consulting and training program. So I'll let Chris talk to that, and I'll mute myself, and then we'll jump into the actual training curriculum today about agent engagement. Thanks, Chris.
Hey, thank you, Travis, and good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our session and seminar. So, you know, I'm a contact center geek, and one of the things I look at in contact center is not necessarily technology, but it's the services around what your clients are looking for, what your agents provide, and what your managers, supervisors, and directors provide as well. And one of the things I look at is the culture and the environment has everything to do with what you produce from a customer service point of view. And today's topic is going to be about more culture-related agent engagement and creating an environment of success. Now, this is part of what we call our Contact Center Success Manager program. It's an education program that we provide at Inflow, and it's really about contact center. It's not formalized as just a product offering. It is really about engagement from our point of view from consulting and training. And when we talk about training, the training is not product training. It's about operational and business training for the contact center. The goal of the CCSM program really is to provide side-by-side business consulting for all things contact center. It's allowing us to do what I call practical application, and I think that's what's missing in the contact center is you have many vendors who provide products and offerings to you, but who is providing the practical application? When I talk about practical application, I talk about, but how does it work for me? How will it work for my environment? And no two environments are the same. While they're similar, they're not the same. And so when we come in with the Contact Center Success Manager program, we are looking to tie together product knowledge with operational value. The product knowledge is the applications you have at your desktop, and it doesn't have to be a ShoreTel or a product that we offer. It can be any product. In my mind, a contact center is a contact center regardless of product. But what we look at is the product you have. We look at the application nuances. Even though an application can be robust and do many things, there are nuances to the application which you don't find in the manual. And what my goal is always, how do I get the most impact out of my product quickly? So we're looking to come into the operation and give you operational value based on products you already have. That being said, we offer operational training. Now, most people in the contact center space, whether you're a supervisor or manager or director or team lead, you didn't come to it as something that you aspired to be as you're growing up. Contact center, typically the way it happened, at least when I confer with people, they agree that they started their job as an agent in the contact center figuring that it was a job and they were going to do this for a period of time and then move on. And yet, they found they were good at it. At the customer service, they got promoted to the next level. So by and large, people are learning things. And what I'm going to loosely say is winging it. Even though the operation has good value and they have a foundation in most cases, often there was really no formalized training about how do I become a manager, how do I look at statistics and metrics to really help impact the business. So we look at operational value and positioning of those products that you already have. And lastly is supporting the customer. We want to support you with best practices. How can you get the most out of what you're doing and what products you have to facilitate your end goal, which I believe everyone has the same end goal, excellent customer service. And today, if you look at the industry trends and where everyone is focused, it's flatly focused on customer service. And we get reminded about that constantly because customers can choose to go to any other provider when they are underserviced. And so our goal is to give you best practices, especially industry knowledge and industry trends to keep you on par with what's happening in the industry. So our goal is complete contact center support and education. And I call this bridging the gap. The Contact Center Success Manager is really about helping align the left brain with right brain. Technical savvy on the products with operational value on the floor. So it's product know-how, industry knowledge, operational positioning in your environment, and a contact center classroom where necessary. And that classroom can take on lots of different iterations. Again, it's not focused on product, it's focused on things that you don't necessarily get. We offer an IT administrator boot camp. From an IT's point of view, they have a very different objective and goal in supporting the contact center. So we come in, we work with some of our customers that you saw earlier, and we help educate the admin folks on the best way they can support their contact center. We have a supervisor boot camp. This offers the training for someone that may be coming up in the ranks and giving them more leadership skills, communication skills, how to look at metrics and things of that nature. We also have an agent boot camp focused on agents delivering great customer service, using the tools and advantages that they have at their desktop to help them facilitate their focus, which should be on the customer while maintaining integrity with the products and services you provide. We also have one geared towards IVR. IVR has been around for years, and tying IVR with data can have dramatic improvements in your contact center and give you an advantage over your competition. This is a class geared towards administrators to help them really understand how they can make their contact center spin on a dime, be as dynamic and thoughtful as possible with the customer as the focus, and giving you more leverage to control the business. And that's an important piece that's often forgotten. And lastly, one of the classes that we're going to talk about today is creating a culture of success. And the class is really geared towards how do I create a culture of success. A lot of it involves agent engagement, which is the topic we're going to cover today. Agent engagement is an important program that I think is missed too often. I would say about 25% of the contact centers I go into have an active program, and the rest just kind of do what they've normally done without any thoughts around it. So we're going to talk today about culture and agent engagement, and more specifically, the program, when we get into a new environment, we look at the culture first, find out what the culture is doing, and then we look at effective ways of what's impacting the culture with agent engagement. How do we improve autonomy from the user? How do we get away from micromanagement and get more into creating an environment where everyone feels involved and that their efforts are part of the overall success? And we call it creating a fun and engaging workplace, because all of that translates to positivity, and that's where we're focused at. It is focused on culture, and part of the agent engagement and culture class that we offer is about creating strategies for contact center growth, feedback programs, offering ways or creative ways to provide feedback from an agent to the management to the upper echelon of your operation, so that everyone really understands that the contact center culture isn't just about the people working in the contact center, it's about the entire operation. So feedback programs factor in very heavily. Offering solutions or examples for agent recognition opportunities, creating career opportunities. We're going to talk a little bit about some of these things. These things really are geared towards the fundamental needs for most employees, and also knowledge enhancement, giving them more information so they can be more skilled at what they do. And you'll find that people that have growth opportunities, feedback loops, and ways to communicate and are actively heard tend to produce more. And the bottom line is all of this equates to creating a culture of success. So today's topic, driving agent engagement. Let's get into some of the details here. And normally through these sessions, there's always questions that come up. It would be impossible to hit every topic that meets everyone's needs. So Susan Vargo, I work with directly here and very closely at Inflow. If you have questions, send Susan an email request, and she works and coordinates my schedule. So she would be a point of contact. I run around the country and do quite a bit. So when we do have opportunities where clients are just simply asking a question, you can email svargo@inflowcommunications.com. Susan will reach out to me, and we'll find an agreeable time. It can be half an hour to an hour, or we can just talk about your events or what you have going on in your contact center and give you some insight, maybe offer some examples, things of that nature. And you do not have to be a customer in order for us to have this engagement. We're all about education, and I've been around contact center, and one of the things I really enjoy best in contact center is educating people, because there's this sense of accomplishment people get when they can say, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. That's great. Thank you so much. So we're all about education. So let's talk about our agenda today. We're going to talk about what is agent engagement. We're going to talk about the role of the agent. We're going to talk about basic concepts of motivation and human nature. We're going to talk touch on the topic of beyond the metrics. Agent engagement really takes us beyond metrics, although we never lose sight of metrics in the contact center because that's how we gauge the pulse of our operation. Agent engagement is really outside of metrics. We're going to talk about benefits of agent engagement. We're going to look at a high view of tools for driving agent engagement, which could be communication, wallboards, alerts, QA, creative ways to improve agent engagement. We'll leave you quite a few examples that hopefully will spark some interest. And this is kind of where we're at Inflow. Anything we have on paper, we're willing to share. We like to share our knowledge and what we've learned over the last 20 so years in the contact center space. And then we'll leave it open for QA at the end. I will also stop between sections to ask for questions just in case someone has a question or a thought that they'd like addressed. We can do that in real time. So in your window there in the session, you can type your question in the chat session, and then I'll ask Travis to read those to me. And if the question is deep and requires a lot more time, then we'll connect you with Susan, who can work on my calendar, and we'll have a one-on-one with that. And by the way, all the information is free. We do not charge you for it. I've had a couple of inquiries come in. They were a little tentative about talking because they felt like they had to pay for it, and absolutely not. We like to share what we've learned. And this comes from my experience in being in contact center for 20-plus years. I learned the old-fashioned way, by just digging in and doing it, and you'd be surprised, and this is what I say, this is my mantra, the customer always learns more about products and how to than the provider, and I believe in that because your world from day-to-day operations and minute-to-minute customer-to-customer is so very different. So let's get into let's talk about what is agent engagement first and foremost. If I can put it simply, it is creating a work environment that creates and encourages, and it creates and encourages active participation. And this is the #1 tenet of agent engagement. How do I get my agents involved in the overall process? And the return for that is the happier agents are involved. If they're heard and listened to, it's going to translate to good numbers for your clients. And your clients who call you by phone, they're going to hear a voice, and I can't tell you and express to you how important it is to have an upbeat, friendly voice greet you. I call contact centers often, like everybody does, for support, whether it's a bank or something of that nature where I need to do some personal business. But the point is, I am swayed by the personality that I hear on the receiving end because I can tell whether that person is really engaged in wanting to help me or not. So agent engagement creates and encourages active participation, and I think it solves a human desire, a desire to be involved. Now this goes a little bit about micromanagement, right? Oftentimes contact centers just say, here's how you do it, and this is what we want. We don't want any feedback and input. But I think that's a mistake at some level because I think your agents or people, they have a lot to offer you. They have insights in their own world experiences, and remember, they're the front lines of your business. And I always listen to agents. I want to know what their experience is because their direct experience in the contact center is by and large what they're going to produce for your customers when they call. The concept of agent engagement really is that people drive the results, and agent engagement is treating your agents as individuals rather than a commodity. And everyone has a different personality. Sure, there are metrics we need to gauge in terms of performance, but there are also ways that you can enhance the overall experience for your reps. So benefits of an active program of agent engagement. This is new information that I just received, and these are some interesting statistics about the benefits of agent engagement. An increase of 10% in employee engagement programs can increase your profits by approximately $2,400 per employee per year. Now, if you notice, I'm saying per employee, not agents, because I think the culture of agent engagement extends beyond the contact center. I do have a very good customer that I work with in the Pacific Northwest, and I will tell you that she is very engaged in her agents, but she's also engaged across departments, and everyone has a mindset for the culture of the contact center. Now, this information comes from Workplace Research Foundation. This isn't something that I came up with. It was sourced from information gathered by Workplace Research Foundation. Also, engaged employees are 38% more likely to have above average productivity. Think about your involvement in whatever you do. If you're just a participant running somebody else's bid, there's less of an attraction there because it becomes like a robot You're just automating what someone told you, what you've been told by someone else. However, when you're engaged and your feedback is part of that funnel, you're more likely to have a better experience, and your productivity will reflect that. This also comes to us from Workplace Research Foundation. Companies with engaged employees outperform those without such programs by a whopping 202%. This source is from Dale Carnegie. Now, 202% is a huge percentile. That's not something that I think should be, disregarded. I think when you look at an active participation program, agent engagement, you can start charting what the success are. And I think you can feel it on the floor, and if you were to call in and do an audit of your contact center, you can certainly feel it when the call is intercepted. Now I'm going to talk about SJS solutions here in just a moment, but let's talk about a couple more benefits. Implementing regular feedback channels. It's surprising to me how many contact centers do not offer a feedback loop or a suggestion box or an open dialogue from the agent's perspective back to management, whether that's at the floor level, team leader, supervisor, or director, or all the way up to the upper channels. But it does result in turnover rates that are 14.9% lower than a contact center that has no feedback loop. So a feedback loop. So for those of you that have been in your contact center, if you're struggling with turnover, I think one of the things I typically look at is if they have high turnover, we look at a few things. What's the communication link? What's their input link? Because that's really about value and am I being heard? Most contact centers deal with turnover, but I've seen strategic placements for agent engagement drastically reduce contact center turnover, which is a great opportunity for you, because the longer your agents are there, the more they know your culture, they know the ins and outs of the operation, they're better able to perform with their clients. One of my clients in the Pacific Northwest has an agent who has been in the company for many, many years and has also worked in many, many different departments. Her knowledge that she brings to the table, she is by no surprise the top producing agent on the floor, because she knows the ins and outs of the company, and all that knowledge translates. So having a feedback channel is important. One of the contact centers that I worked in had a regular weekly meeting on Fridays. Normally the contact center operated from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., but on Fridays they opened at 9 a.m. to allow for an hour of collective get-together, celebration of successes, read back success stories, read back client feedback. Just that hour of time was tremendous in terms of acknowledging reps and really bringing everyone together. And they provided breakfast too, which was a big win. Only 25% of businesses today have an active strategy for employee engagement. This comes to us from Dale Carnegie. By the way, the information about the 14.9% lower turnover comes to us via Gallup. I think everyone has heard of Gallup. So I want to pay special thanks to SJS Solutions. The information is listed here. sjssolutions.com offers a variety of products and services which create wallboards and other opportunities for agent engagement. If you're looking for information, we can set up an appointment to discuss with them directly. Stephen Pace is the CEO and president of SJS Solutions, and you can see here, if you want to contact them directly, you can go to info@sjssolutions.com, or you can go to their website, sjssolutions.com, or go to YouTube. They have a couple of videos there. Their wallboards are pretty good. They give you quite a bit of flexibility. A lot of wallboards out there leave you with just basic metrics in the contact center. With SJS, you can customize it for more meaningful metrics such as sales, turnover, call turnover, ticket closure, things that are really important in the contact center. Now, if you've been on my session before, I've quoted this gentleman before, Sir Richard Branson, for those of you that know who he is. He has a very insightful quote that I actually love, and it is, if you take care of your employees, they will take care of the clients. This is really a key tenet to agent engagement. Working with your employees, giving them empowerment, allowing them to think on their own feet, they become better at what they do, and an active participation results in nothing but success for your customers. The way they're treated is going to be the way they're going to treat your customers. And I really believe in this statement here. It's a powerful statement, I think. So consider asking yourself the following questions. This is just to spark your thoughts about agent engagement, to give you like a way to, a litmus test to kind of jot some notes. one question might be, how are you managing the ongoing development of your people? One of the key things that people look for in compatibility with an operation and feeling good about where they are is, am I just stuck at one position, or do I have a development opportunity? So do you have an active ongoing development program within your organization? Do you have training classes that supervisor training or team lead? It could be as simple as offering a separate meeting. So for example, in Inflow, we have leadership meetings aside from team meetings, aside from company meetings. Each of those has a different flavor, but knowing that you can get into the next level or a different level of process is a really important personal development piece. And it gets people feeling that, that's not just what I do today that matters. There's something ahead of me that I can strive for. And I don't know about you, but I think most people strive to get better and look for growth opportunities. Next question you might ask is, do you have a strategy to ensure agents are engaged with their work? I think agent engagement, it means communication is always a key piece, but are they actively being heard? And we're going to talk about a couple of things that, and a couple of examples of the agent engagement programs that I've seen in active use, and it would be surprising that the smallest thing can produce the greatest sort of excitement in the contact center. And what is fun about that is once you start doing those programs, you're going to start seeing quickly people really aren't interested in having variety, and that's what's really important. And I think really our agents committed to doing great work. I think most people get a job, they want to do great work, but they fall the wayside when their job becomes monotonous and mundane. So let's talk about the role of an agent. What I'm going to say is the role of an agent is a very difficult role. I think it's one of the hardest jobs that you can have because there are so many outside obstacles or things that are impacting the agent on a constant basis. So I talk a lot about agent engagement. It's sort of like the receptionist. The receptionist is the front line of your business. The agent is the front line of your brand. So your brand that you want to portray to your clients is really important. And anything you can do to work with your agents to give them a great benefit of experience. And I would say it translates and changes from environment to environment. So one of the things I look at too is, let's talk about something very simple that everyone's familiar with, after call work. In a very stressful environment, extending the after call work to give agents downtime between calls is probably a good starting point, but really getting a handle on where they need breaks. That's very different than a quick, easy contact center where they don't really have a highly stressful environment. But that being said, most contact centers environments, because of the metrics, tend to be stressful. I'm just saying, and my example is really about thinking it from different vantage points. There's no one size fits all. Agents have an important role in terms of what they're tasked with. Number one, they represent your brand. That goes without saying. But what's really important, though, is how they answer the call and how they greet clients does have a subliminal message that is sent out to your customers, and they feel it the minute the call is answered. I was on a call yesterday with an unnamed vendor, Allstate, who got me to a department and just really wasn't thrilled with helping anybody. It was also a very noisy contact center. I could hear all the crosstalk in the background, so it was very difficult. When they transferred to the right department, it was a more professional environment. It was very quiet, and I was surprised at the difference in service I got in that environment. They also are the ones that take care of your customers. When you think about it, these are the folks that you've empowered and you pay them a wage to handle your customers. So if you're expecting excellent customer service, of course you expect your agents to perform well. At some level, I think it's your responsibility to give them the tools and the environment so that they can feel really good about what they do. Now, that's not to say they're going to feel great about what they do 100% of the time, but for the most part, I think you can satisfy most people by giving them things that help them elevate their experience. Their job provides value, of course. They're the front lines of your business. They're the ones that actually are the face of your business. And lastly, they can make or break the customer experience, and that is a true statement. Again, my experience yesterday, my initial agent that reached me, he seemed like he was bored with his job and was just kind of going through the motions. But when I got to the next rep, who was in a more quiet environment, she was actually happier. And anyway, so those things were important to me. I heard those definitely loud and clear. So those things that I hear, I have to believe other people hear as well. Now let's look a little further at the role of the agent. I think what can happen to an agent, their job can become mundane. Think about what they do, call after call. They have for those environments that do have a scripted desktop flow process for efficiency purposes, it can become mundane, and your agents tend to start looking at things as monotonous. Do I got to do this again over and over? So one of the things that are difficult about the role of an agent, which can provide a sense of mundane, is that inconsistent temperaments. You know, customers and people are very different. They come at it from different points of view, and maybe they're having a bad day. You know, oftentimes agents are the end of the vent, or the receiving end of someone's vent inappropriately, and it's very difficult to disassociate from that. They do the same activity over and over. What I see interesting too is that in a lot of contact centers, I don't see a lot of recognition for the agents individually. What I do see is wallboards, or wallboards that have metrics and statistics about the overall performance. In the last several I've been in, I haven't seen a lot of programs geared towards agent recognition. And what happens there is that agents become robotic, and you've got to find a way to kind of mix it up, give them something, a little variety, and there's lots of ways to do that. So let's talk about motivation and human nature. I think this is a key aspect here. The basics are, if you're looking at the basics of human nature, this is what people look for. What do I get? Obviously, we know they get a job, but what do I have to give as part of that? That's an important piece. I think a really critical piece is, do I belong? I've actually seen employees leave companies because they just don't fit the culture, they just don't belong. But when I look at the deeper level, I find out, well, why don't they belong? Was there an active and aggressive orientation process? That really is the foundation of starting off an agent right. So I think having what I've heard before is a Right Start program. Can I get somebody engaged in a buddy system so they feel that they belong there from day one, and continually get that belonging? I think everyone likes to belong to something. And how can I grow? I think individuals, you do have your agents who have a skill set, or even just a mindset of, you know, I just want to be an agent. I don't want all the heavy responsibility and burden of all these other things that management involves. So I'm happy being an agent. But even under that context, I think people want to know, how do I grow? Can I become a specialist at part of what I do? So all these things take into consideration. I think the other one is, am I appreciated? And all of this information comes to us from ICMI. If you look for ICMI, they're an international industry leader in education and contact center, one of the very few. So this comes to them from a written article in January 2016. So let's look at metrics. Okay, so we all know that metrics drive the contact center. Without metrics, we don't have the pulse of the contact center. We know that if we run reports, and I know that everyone on this call likely runs reports on a daily basis for sure, and maybe incrementally every hour, just to get a pulse on where you are in your contact center. But the contact center itself is beyond metrics. Metrics will always be a part of every contact center operation. We cannot get away from it. It's the way we test and report on the pulse of the contact center. This information typically funnels upstairs to someone who then wants to know, how are we reducing abandoned calls? How are we reducing the average wait time and things of that nature? But extending agent engagement beyond metrics adds variety and interest to the job. And I think it inspires participation and contribution. Part of that is through ongoing communication. And when I talk about extending metrics, you know, are there incentive programs? Are there ways for agents to compete against each other? Because people, I think, I said this once before, in America, we're a me-first society. We love to win. People love to win. So giving them a friendly, helpful way to kind of create some competition is always fun. Coaching for improvement, that's an important piece. A lot of times I see contact centers, they lack the coaching. The supervisors spend a lot of time critiquing by way of paper or by email, but do they have that personal one-on-one coaching? Hey, let's get together, let's find out what's going on in your personal life, and maybe you'll uncover something that you didn't know about the rep. But coaching for improvement is always helpful, and having an active ongoing training program. I think people forget that once the initial training happens, there is still always a need for training. If you're not constantly looking how to improve the operation and improve the experience for both your employees, your agents, and your customers, you're missing something. I would say at minimum having an ongoing program of once a month, maybe more often, but once a month certainly. And then are there ways for creating opportunities for growth? And lastly, recognition programs and processes. I think this is the one that drives most people. I think people love to be the one with the gold star, the one that's achieving the most sales, the one that's got the most return surveys of happy customers. Those types of things are important. It becomes this little competition. And there's a lot of ways to extend that for sure. So let's look at the enterprise contact center. Some of the benefits that we've sort of talked about just as an overview. You have more enthusiastic agents, typically perform better, reduce turnover, and we all know that turnover happens at a high cost. So anything you can do to impact turnover is important. But I think an important piece is improved relationships, which we haven't really touched on. Improving the relations between agents and managers. I think the key here is that they're working together to achieve a goal, and I think they're equally important. They just have different responsibilities, but that's an important piece. I think increased collaboration always wins. Anytime you can get an open communication loop and people can communicate back and forth, and most importantly, they've heard, it's great for the agent's morale. Higher quality customer interactions. When agents feel engaged and involved and that their contributions are important, that naturally is going to translate into their personality, into how they answer and intercept your clients. And they will strive to do the best job for clients as well. They're more open to communication and coaching. For example, if you have an active agent engagement program, they're going to be more open to hearing what you have to offer. And oftentimes the obstacle is that the people are just not open to communication. Your agents have a built-up wall. So having an active program helps take those walls down and creates more synergy, really. You get more camaraderie, increased camaraderie. I think teamwork is essential in the contact center, and higher productivity through the shift. A lot of times I look at agents that might be worn out at the end of the shift versus when they first arrive. I think discovering the causes of that is really important, because you want to have the same level of energy throughout the day. Now, it's not probable to be able to do that 100% of the time, but anything you can do to strive to keep that consistent, and always analyzing the bottlenecks. And that's really where agent engagement comes into play here. So let's look at a couple of tools for driving agent engagement. Now, there's going to be some common tools that most people have in their contact center that everyone's familiar with. And these are not by any means every wallboard. These are just some that we happen to offer. But a variety of tools can help create agent engagement. Now, that being said, beyond metrics, most wallboards have status of agent, who's logged in, who's logged out, what's the performance status. Wallboards are great. They give you some information. But what I think is missing in many contact centers, in fact, I was just in 3 contact centers in the last 2 months, is that they're missing a personalized agent view. It's great to see teamwork, but what about a personal agent view? You will have certain agents that strive to be the best at what they do, regardless of what their neighbor or their agent sitting next to them is doing. They just have a personal stake in their own success and like to challenge themselves. But what I often see is that agents don't have a personalized view. They get a global view. And I also would say, from a point of view of motivation and morale, I'm not a fan of putting personal agent statistics in the wallboard, because what happens naturally, people look at the wallboard and say, haha, I'm the best performer, look who's not the best performer. And that sort of sends a negative message, in my opinion. What I like to see is a wallboard that shows the top 3 people, because then guess what happens? From a mentality point of view, everyone strives to be, hey, did I make the top 3? Think about a gamer, and we're going to talk about games in a minute, but think about a gamer. A gamer is always looking for the top score. Haha, I got 35,000 stars, etc. But a personal agent view seems to be missing quite a bit in most of the contact centers I look at. Also, the ability to have alerts. Is there an alert mechanism that keeps us on point? Now, my example here, I'm showing you a ShoreTel product, but most products have some sort of alert mechanism that gives them a status of, hey, new call coming in. I think the most important piece about that is showing information about that call. That's got to be part of the process. Quality assurance. Now, this is one of our business partners, OakSI. They have a great quality call recording and quality assurance application. I think a QA application is mandatory to gauge performance, because this sets the foundation for creating a MO, modus operandi, for running through the client, right? So you can break these down in multiple segments. The really good ones allow you to have multiple segments and different scoring, weighted metrics. So the greeting gets a high valuation, product knowledge, and greeting the customer by first name and friendly. So this is one of our business partners, OakSI. They have a great call recording solution and a QA solution. Now, gamification. If you've not heard it, I think, well, I'm not going to take a guess here at this point. But gamification is the big trend in contact centers, has been for quite a while. It's getting more and more traction. The concept of gamification is, how do I create an environment that inspires the agents to succeed, but also gives me the opportunity to kind of control what I want them to look at. So gamification can be who scores the best customer satisfaction surveys, who's got the most or updates completed. And so the gamification allows you to create more of a proactive environment, and it creates a racing mechanism. So it's not too different than seeing a racetrack where cars or gold stars drive that. And you'd be surprised how many agents like the gamification, because it is sort of an alternate distraction, gives them a little more fun and play on the floor, and it also helps drive the underlying piece for the management, which is I want my reps constantly looking at fresh new modules, training modules, and if they happen to underperform in a QA process, then you can assign training modules. So there's a lot to be said about gamification because it does change the world. And if you have gamers, and a lot of people today are gamers, this kind of gives them a little outlet. So let's talk about some creative ideas that I've seen in practice for agent engagement that I think have worked really well. One of them is the message of the day. And it's provided by your agents. You know, we've all seen, whether you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, those inspiring messages. Those are great, but after a while they become, yeah, so that's somebody else's thought and opinion. But when you talk about your personal environment and agents are contributing to that, you would be surprised how agents respond the minute you forget to post the message of the day. When you start doing these little things, and if you have a product that does that, the message of the day can be a very simple, low-cost, effective item. But what you get is you have someone providing, they could be fun quotes, quotes about clients and customers and products, because we all have funny experiences. But the minute you forget, the funny thing is agents will remind you, hey, where's my message of the day? And put their name on it, just like I did with Sir Richard Branson earlier. Put their name and maybe their picture, and then the agents all, hey, they feel like they've been acknowledged. That's a really fun one, and it's a low-cost investment. Obviously, everyone does special occasions, or I think they do, but special occasion and acknowledgments are always fun. Birthdays, decorating cubicles, have a flashing sign every 15 minutes for someone's birthday, weddings, babies, graduation. I mean, there are a ton of things that happen in everyone's lives. This is another low-cost, effective way to bring acknowledgement to folks, maybe even on those occasions as a gift or something fun. Field trips. Now, this one, I will tell you, impact your contact center in dramatic ways. So I'm going to go into my history here and give you a little insight to one of my, in my history I worked for a timeshare developer many years ago, and some of you may have heard the story before because I tend to share friendly stories over and over. But let me tell you about this contact center. We had 8 resorts. The customers were the timeshare owners. Now, we had the contact center reservations group. There was also a group called owner services, so helping the owners get the best out of the program, and there were the resorts themselves. But there was also the front desk staff at the resorts. One of the field trips that I thought was highly effective was the supervisor at that time, Louise Gavin, and I will tell you about Louise in a few moments. Louise Gavin would offer a weekend stay for a select contact center agent and their family to get the first-hand world experience of what the customer sees. But what the benefit was this: the agents are told to take diligent notes as part of the reservation. But to some agents, it felt like it was too much work, and why so tedious? But when they were on site at the field trip and they got an opportunity to stand with the front desk clerks who were welcoming in the guests, they actually saw the front desk clerks looking at the notes. And so immediately there was a feedback loop of, wow, you actually do look at the notes. That's amazing. And conversely, the front desk staff was able to talk to the agent, could see how they actually run their process. I was in another contact center recently too in Houston where they did the same sort of thing. They brought the contact center agent down into the facility, and they were remarkably surprised at how much work went into doing their job. And the supervisors and the directors that we met with said, wow, they really have excellent agents. So I think it's a great way to bring knowledge across, but then it also extends the contact center across interdepartment. So field trips are an easy, low-cost item. If you have opportunities to do that, I think it's really helpful, because whenever people understand what their role is in the big picture, it becomes much more beneficial for everyone. And there's likely to be a lot of aha moments. Wow.
Hey, Chris, I also have some good questions when you get a pausing, when you get a moment.
Yeah, let's pause here.
Which metrics should I avoid showing my agents? And I got a few more questions here that are
So, okay, so I think the question comes from where I said I didn't think that you should show all the metrics on a wallboard, especially a personal metrics of an agent. So if I'm taking it from that point of view, what I like to show on a wallboard is the successful things, right? 3 performing reps. What's our performance or answer time? But each environment could be different. So if you're doing customer surveys, I would show your stats on surveys. What's our success level? Is it 93% yes? And those sorts of things. If I was going to say that there was a metric you wouldn't show, I would say underperforming reps who aren't quite hitting the metric, I wouldn't show that information. I think it is important at a level to show a team effort. For example, if your SLA, your service level isn't up to par for a particular day, I would show the group number. I wouldn't show the one person who's dragging us down, because that happens often. In the contact center, you could all be performing well, but you may have had one rep who had a difficult customer, and that changed the service level dramatically. So maybe that's how I'll answer the question. I would just say when I talk about critiquing, I talk about acknowledge positivity in public and critique negativity privately. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I also have a couple of other good questions. Which will agents respond well to live social feedback from customers via, say, Facebook or Twitter, etc.?
Will they respond well? So the key to creating a social media loop is that one thing that people aren't talking a lot about, and I think it needs to be talked about, is that in a social media platform, there's a lot of noise out there. Lots and lots of noise. People are posting left and right, etc. I think it's important to have somebody that filters that noise. And when I say noise, I'm saying like the small errant messages. Certainly if someone has a very harsh critique, you should have someone that acts as a go-between to filter some of those things. You wouldn't necessarily want to get that on the floor, because it may be one user's experience and not a collective indication of how you're performing. So when you talk about social media, I think it's really important to have interceptors, or listeners is what they're common referred to, listeners, to look through it before it goes to a public. And by all means, post all the positive ones, and if there are constructive criticism ones, absolutely post those too. You'll find that people that enjoy their products and services are willing to give you good constructive feedback to bolster their experience. And I think you would be naive to post everything positive and no negativity. I think constructive criticism as well.
Okay, one more question, then we'll move on. What other systems should I consider pulling metrics from? Well, first of all, there was a comment about using TV screens as a great way to reinforce brand and remind agents what their company is about. That was a nice comment from Stefan Pace. Also, but the other question was, what other systems should I consider pulling metrics from? So, I mean, we have customers that'll pull from CRM systems or their help desk systems, etc. So, you can speak to that a little bit.
So I think the metrics you pull from are going to be so different in every environment. So what I would encourage you to do is absolutely the sales environment, look at your sales numbers. Look at your CRM, where you're documenting all of that. In a support environment, look at your ticket success rate, how quickly you're opening tickets, which is the initial engagement, and then how quickly are you closing tickets. What is your average time to handle and the average time to close? So that's a service environment. Now here's a really interesting one. In healthcare, this is the same customer I've talked about in the Pacific Northwest. One of the things that was really paramount to their ability to perform is the concept of refilling prescriptions, because their clients call in looking for support on prescriptions and compatibilities, but ultimately, if the contact center handles more calls efficiently, they don't have to deflect those calls to what they call are their fulfillers, the folks who are actually filling the prescriptions. So an important metric that I would post is how many more orders are we processing and what is the likely savings on revenue? Meaning, if I have those guys who actually do the physical work of fulfilling the prescriptions, start answering calls, my ability to produce orders and send them out for the day is going to impact my ability to increase profit and revenue for the day. So those are good metrics to track, and each environment is going to be different. So if you have a specific question and answer you're hoping to find, reach out to Susan, and I'm going to give you her email address again. Reach out to Susan. She will contact me directly. Maybe we can brainstorm in your environment what I immediately see as a good metric to pull from. But I would say anything that has a database, I would think about pulling metrics from. Of course, for IT on the call, that'll be a sensitive discussion. I'm happy to have that discussion with them.
Well, and just to kind of reiterate what Inflow does in our contact center, we actually use the SJS wallboard. We use it, but we publish our websites, or we publish our call and our Zendesk, which is our help desk statistics, live to our website. So if you go up to our website and click on our customer happiness metrics, and we're pulling from our contact center and our Zendesk application. And so what we've done is, yes, that's a dashboard or a wallboard essentially that our agents are always looking at, because we're monitoring, response times and resolution times out of Zendesk, but we're also monitoring the call answer times out of our contact center. But we make that public too, which is real powerful for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, and just to bridge on, we have Stephen Pace on our session today. He is the CEO and owner of SJS Solutions. So he mentioned TV screens. One of the things about SJS is that you can change it up. What I'm really talking about here is everyone shows the metrics such as handle time, blah, blah, blah. That tends to be boring and mundane after a while. But use a scrolling marquee to constantly reinforce your brand, reinforce the message of the day, bring recognition to individual reps. Again, think about people. They want to see their name in lights. If I show up at a marquee and it says, Chris Recio, tonight lecture, I'm like, wow, hey, my name's up in lights. Right? So think about those things. So Stephen, thank you for that reminder there. Use the TV monitors and wallboards to also constantly reinforce your brand, something other than just digits and numbers. One of the things that is a great agent engagement program is the employee referral program. I can't tell you how important this is, because most employees who do a great job and they're invested in your success will only refer employees who are like-minded. And that's really important, because one of the biggest problems in bringing on new staff is, are they a culture fit for who we are? And we regularly look at that. So think about employer referral programs, or do what we do at Inflow. We create a Hero of the Month program where coworkers nominate each other. That is so different than having executive bridge down. I think peers love to work together, and acknowledging peers in a program. We happen to do it. We call it the Hero of the Month. You might call it something else, but there's always a clever, fun way to do it. In a tech support, you might be the Geek of the Month and have a funny picture with a guy, horn rim glasses, and propeller on his hat. I mean, just fun ways to make it fun, right? And it could be sort of like, yeah, you're the geek, making fun of you, but it's also a good way to bring levity. And then any type of reward programs. I've seen something as simple as an assigned parking space. There was a manager or director of a contact center who had the coveted parking space, but when she left her shift at 4 p.m., she gave it to a night person who earned it. Talk about great, because that parking lot was small. And that comes to us by way of Louise Gavin. So when we talk about what Inflow offers, Louise Gavin is one of our CCSMs. She's a contact center success manager. And so she has a lot of creative ways to bring agent engagement. She's really good at it. She has 20 plus years in the industry with such providers and notable names as Nordstrom, Apple, and Disney. But think about you would be surprised that the smallest things can pay big dividends. So let's look at key benefits of an engagement strategy. It encourages participation, improves morale, reduces agent churn, which I think we're all after, provides opportunity for growth and additional opportunities, creates a sense of teamwork, which cannot be understated, and it improves overall customer satisfaction. I think perception is everything. Now, that last slide I went through pretty quick because we have about 5 minutes left, and I want to remind you that if you have something particular to your environment, I welcome any sort of communication. I'm happy to spend a half an hour with you. We can do like an audit. We can just talk about your scenario. You had some good questions today about social media and what information shouldn't we show and how we might do it. I don't think there's anything you shouldn't show. I just think the way you do it is important. But reach out to Susan. She controls my calendar. She works with me directly. She's at sbargo@inflowcommunications.com. Thank you, Stephen Pace from SJS Systems, for being on our session today. And thank you, Travis. And are there any last questions before I give you about 5 minutes back to your day?
Well, I'll just make some comments. No questions that came up, but I would, again, go to our website, go to our knowledge portal. Also, right off our home screen, you'll see all the webinars that we have coming up. So we do a lot of technical training webinars, user webinars, and then always bookmark our website, be looking back. We'll be rolling out new white papers on this particular topic, but other topics in contact center. So there's a lot of webinars, a lot of educational training A lot of really good material that's out there that we share freely and are happy to do so. And yeah, we have a lot of customers that have a lot of success just chatting with Chris about their operation. There's a lot of really good ideas. Chris has seen a lot of different contact centers across a lot of different industries and knows what works, what doesn't, industry trends, best practices. So we'd love to share our knowledge with you.
My last comment will be, thank you, Travis, for that. My last comment will be, if you have any thoughts on what topics you'd like explored during these sessions, I always have my idea of what I would like to explore, but I'm not above taking someone else's suggestions. So if you have a topic you'd like to see explored, send an email to svargo@Inflow Communications. She'll send it to me, and we'll start gearing up for our next session, which will be in 2 months. You should see an announcement coming out soon. So thank you so much for your time today. I believe that Susan will follow up and send you an overview of the presentation so that you have it for reference, and you can also engage Susan, who will reach out to me.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a fantastic day.